Get ready for the ultimate TSX recap, week of June 29th, as NorthFlow Finance AI breaks down the top 10 stocks that made waves. You won't want to miss this. Welcome back to our weekly review segment. We're starting with stock number 1, Reg.V, where a signal was detected on May 14, 2026. This signal was a key indicator for us to take a closer look at this stock. The MA Golden Cross Plus volume surge signal is a significant indicator. It means the short-term moving average has crossed above the long-term moving average, combined with a substantial increase in trading volume, in this case, 47.4%, which can be a sign of a potential trend reversal or continuation. At the time, the RSI was at 48.6, indicating a relatively neutral position, not overbought or oversold. This signal suggested that Reg.V could be poised for a move upwards, and with an entry price of $4.07, it was definitely on our radar. This week, Reg.V gained 11.1%, opening at $3.87, reaching a high of $4.30, and a low of $3.87, before closing at $4.30. This performance is a strong validation of the original signal, as the stock has shown significant upward momentum. The increase in price is a clear indication that the signal was correct, and investors who got in at the entry price would be pleased with the return so far. The stock's ability to hold its gains and close at the high of the week is also a positive sign. Recent headlines have been highlighting Reg.V as one of the TSX penny stocks to watch in May 2026, and this week's performance certainly justifies that attention, as the stock has shown it has the potential to make significant moves. The fact that it's being featured in these types of articles could bring more attention to the stock, potentially leading to further price increases. As we look ahead to next week, viewers should watch for continued upward momentum, and whether the stock can break through any potential resistance levels. We'll be keeping a close eye on Reg.V to see if it can maintain this trajectory, and what opportunities or challenges may arise. Now let's move on to our next stock. We're taking a look at Medalla Royalty and Streaming, ticker symbol MTA.V, where we detected a signal on May 27. This signal was triggered due to a moving average golden cross combined with a significant volume surge, which is a pretty bullish indicator. The moving average golden cross plus volume surge signal is a technical indicator that suggests a potential trend reversal or acceleration, and in this case, it seemed to be a buy signal, especially with the relative strength index, or RSI, at 55.8, which isn't overbought, and a massive volume surge of 155.9%. At the time of the signal, the stock was trading at $10.09, and it seemed like a good entry point. The combination of these factors suggested that the stock was poised for a potential breakout. This stock had a great week, gaining 10.1%, it opened at $9.72, reached a high of $11, and a low of $9.72, closing at $10.7. This performance seems to validate the original signal, as the stock has been trending upwards since then. The stock's ability to hold its gains and close near the high of the week is a positive sign. The weekly performance suggests that the bullish momentum is still intact. Medalla recently reported a profitable quarter with higher revenue, which is a positive development. However, the stock price dropped after hours, which might seem counterintuitive, but it's possible that the market was expecting even better results, which could have contributed to the stock's weekly gain being somewhat tempered. The company's ability to generate profits and grow revenue is a key factor in its long-term success. As we look ahead to next week, viewers should keep an eye on whether the stock can continue its upward momentum and break through the $11 level, and also monitor any potential news or announcements that could impact the stock's price. The stock's ability to sustain its gains will depend on its ability to deliver strong financial results and maintain its competitive position. Now let's move on to our next stock. We're taking a look at stock number 3 of 10, which is WED.V, and the signal was detected on May 13, 2026. This stock caught our attention when we saw a MACD bullish crossover combined with a significant volume surge, so let's break it down. The MACD bullish crossover plus volume surge signal indicated a potential trend reversal, and with the relative strength index, or RSI, at 51.0, it suggested that the stock was not overbought at the time of the signal, making it a more compelling buy opportunity. The volume surge of 200% was a strong confirmation of the bullish sentiment, and with an entry price of $23.98, we were looking for some upside potential. This signal combination has historically been a reliable indicator of an impending price increase. This stock had a great week, gaining 8.8%, it opened at $21.05, reached a high of $23 and a low of $20.10, closing at $22.91. This performance does validate the original signal to some extent, as the stock did move in the expected direction, although it's still a bit early to tell if this trend will continue. The weekly price action suggests that the bullish momentum is still present, but we need to see more confirmation before getting overly optimistic. In recent news, West AIM released their Q4 earnings snapshot, which seems to have had a positive impact on the stock's weekly performance, as investors reacted favorably to the company's financial results. The earnings report likely contributed to the stock's gain this week, as investors gained more confidence in the company's prospects. Looking ahead, we'll be watching for further confirmation of the bullish trend, and any potential pullbacks that could provide a buying opportunity. Viewers should keep an eye on the stock's ability to hold its current gains and potentially break out to new highs. Now let's move on to our next stock. We're taking a look at stock number 4, ASE.V, where our system detected a MACD bullish crossover plus a volume surge on May 26, 2026. This signal was detected when the stock was trading at $1.09, with an RSI of 46.9, and a notable volume surge of 298.9%. The MACD bullish crossover is a pretty strong indicator of a potential trend reversal, and when you combine that with a significant volume surge, it's a signal that we take seriously. At the time, it meant that the stock was gaining momentum and the buyers were stepping in, which could be a sign of a potential upward trend. The volume surge was particularly notable, as it showed that there was a lot of interest in the stock, and that the price action was not just a result of a few stray trades. This week, ASE.V gained 27.5%, opening at 69 cents, reaching a high of 88 cents, and a low of 64 cents, before closing at 88 cents. This performance definitely validates the original signal, as the stock has continued to move higher, and the buyers have remained in control. The stock's ability to hold its gains and close near the high of the week is also a positive sign, and suggests that the uptrend may continue. Asante Gold recently completed a major private placement, and this has likely had an impact on the stock's valuation, and may be contributing to the recent share price moves. The fact that the stock has been able to hold its gains despite the potential for dilution from the private placement is a good sign, and suggests that investors are still bullish on the company's prospects. As we head into next week, viewers should watch for whether ASE.V can continue to build on its momentum, and whether the stock can break out above its recent highs. We'll also be keeping an eye on the company's fundamentals, and any news that may impact the stock's valuation. Now let's move on to our next stock. We're taking a look at stock number 5 of 10, GSKR.V, where a signal was detected on June 30th. This signal was a MACD bullish crossover combined with a volume surge, which is a pretty strong indicator of potential upward movement. The MACD bullish crossover plus volume surge signal is a technical indicator that suggests a shift in market sentiment, and when we saw this on June 30th, it meant that the stock was likely to see some upward momentum. At the time, the RSI was at 57.4, which isn't overly extended, and the volume surge of 136.7% was a clear indication of increasing interest in the stock. This combination of factors made for a compelling entry point at $3.25. This week, GSKR.V gained 6.2%, which is a pretty solid move, and it's worth noting that it opened at $3.25, reached a high of $3.48, and a low of $3.09, before closing at $3.45. This performance does seem to validate the original signal, as the stock has continued to trend upward. The fact that it was able to hold above the entry point and make new highs suggests that the bullish momentum is still intact. In recent news, Gold Sky Resources has made some key appointments, including a new CFO and SVP of Exploration and Resource Development, which could be a positive development for the company. This move may have contributed to the stock's weekly performance, as it suggests that the company is strengthening its leadership team and positioning itself for future growth. Looking ahead to next week, viewers should watch for whether GSKR.V can continue to build on this momentum, and whether the stock can break through any key resistance levels. We'll also be keeping an eye on any further news or developments that could impact the stock's performance. Now let's move on to our next stock. We're taking a closer look at Eldorado Gold, stock symbol ELD.TO, where our signal detection system picked up on a MA Golden Cross plus volume surge on May 26, 2026. This signal was triggered when the stock was trading at $44.85. The MA Golden Cross Plus volume surge signal indicates a potential bullish trend reversal, and in this case, it was especially compelling given the significant volume surge of 223.9%. At the time of the signal, the RSI was at 61.9, which suggested that the stock was approaching overbought territory but still had room to run. The combination of these technical indicators suggested that Eldorado Gold was poised for a potential upside move. This week, Eldorado Gold gained 11.9%, opening at $43.63, reaching a high of $49.21, and a low of $43.10, before closing at $48.84. This strong performance validates the original signal, as the stock has continued to trend upward. The stock's ability to hold its gains and close near its high for the week is a positive sign. The move also suggests that the bullish momentum is still intact. There was some negative news surrounding Eldorado Gold this week, with some investors becoming cautious due to concerns over the stock's valuation and potential risks. Despite this, the stock's weekly performance suggests that the overall trend remains positive. The recent headlines about the stock diving may have been overblown, given the stock's ability to bounce back and close the week on a strong note. As we look ahead to next week, investors should watch for whether Eldorado Gold can continue to build on its momentum and break through any potential resistance levels. Viewers should also keep an eye on any changes in the stock's technical indicators, such as the RSI, to see if it becomes overbought or if a potential reversal is on the horizon. Now let's move on to our next stock. We're looking at stock number 7 of 10, Heliostar Metals, or HSTR.V, where we detected a signal on July 2, 2026. This signal was a moving average golden cross combined with a volume surge, which is often a bullish indicator for stocks. The moving average golden cross plus volume surge signal is a strong indication that a stock is about to make a significant move upwards, and in this case, it was accompanied by a 64.1% increase in volume, which is a pretty big deal. At the time of the signal, the Relative Strength Index, or RSI, was at 61.3, which is not overly extended, so there was still room for the stock to run. The entry price at the time of the signal was $1.99, which looked like a good buying opportunity. This week, Heliostar Metals gained 15.8%, which is a pretty strong move. It opened at $1.77, reached a high of $2.06, and a low of $1.71, before closing at $2.05. This performance definitely validates the original signal, as the stock has continued to trend upwards. The stock's ability to hold its gains and close near its high for the week is also a positive sign. There was some news out this week about Heliostar. The company announced a shelf filing and provided an update on drilling at its La Colorada project, which seemed to have a mixed impact on the stock price. Despite the news, the stock was still able to close up for the week, which suggests that investors are still bullish on the company's prospects. Looking ahead to next week, we'll be watching to see if Heliostar can continue its upward trend, and whether the company can build on the momentum it's established so far. Viewers should keep an eye on the stock's volume and relative strength index, to see if they can provide any clues about the stock's next move. Now let's move on to our next stock. We're taking a look at stock number 8 of 10, TAU.V, where we detected a signal on June 4, 2026. This signal was a moving average golden cross combined with a volume surge, which is a pretty powerful indicator of a potential trend reversal. The moving average golden cross plus volume surge signal is a technical indicator that suggests a stock's short-term moving average has crossed above its long-term moving average, indicating a potential bullish trend, and when combined with a significant volume surge, it can be a pretty strong buy signal. At the time of the signal, the relative strength index was at 34.6, which is relatively low, indicating the stock may have been oversold. The volume surge was a whopping 91.6%, which is a clear indication of increased investor interest. This week, TAU.V gained 14.6%, opening at $2.8, reaching a high of $3.32 and a low of $2.8, closing at $3.21. This performance is a pretty good validation of the original signal, as the stock has continued to trend upwards. The stock's ability to hold its gains and close near the high of the week is a positive sign, and we'll be watching to see if this momentum can continue. In recent news, Thesis Gold, a company in the same sector, just raised $44 million through a private placement, which could be a positive sign for the industry as a whole. This influx of capital could lead to increased investment and activity in the sector, which could have a positive impact on TAU.V's stock price. This news may have contributed to the stock's weekly gain, as investors become more optimistic about the sector. Looking ahead to next week, we'll be watching to see if TAU.V can continue its upward trend and break through any resistance levels. We'll also be keeping an eye on any further news or announcements from the company that could impact the stock's price. Now let's move on to our next stock. We're taking a look at stock number 9 of 10, which is THX.V, and the signal was detected on May 25, 2026. This signal indicated a potential buying opportunity, so let's dive in and see what happened. The MA Golden Cross Plus volume surge signal is a strong indicator of a potential trend reversal, and when we saw this signal on May 25, it meant that the stock's short-term moving average had crossed above its long-term moving average, combined with a significant increase in trading volume, which was up 34.8%. At the time, the RSI was at 62.7, which is not overbought, and the entry price was $1.39. This signal suggested that the stock was gaining momentum and could be due for a rally. This week, the stock gained 6.6%, which is a pretty good move, and it opened at $1.06, reached a high of $1.14, and a low of $1, closing at $1.13. This performance validates the original signal, as the stock has continued to trend upwards. The stock's ability to hold above $1 is a positive sign, and the fact that it's making higher highs and higher lows is also bullish. The company recently reported its Q1 2026 earnings, and the highlights included a strong financial position, which is a positive development for the stock. This news likely contributed to the stock's weekly gain, as investors are becoming more confident in the company's ability to perform well. The strong financial position also gives the company more flexibility to invest in its operations and pursue growth opportunities. Looking ahead to next week, viewers should watch for the stock to continue its uptrend and potentially break out above $1.14. If the stock can hold above $1, it could be a sign of further gains to come. Now let's move on to our next stock. We're taking a closer look at MAI.V, a stock that caught our attention on July 2 when our system detected a MACD bullish crossover combined with a significant volume surge. This signal was triggered when the stock was trading at $5.37, with an RSI of 44.1, and a notable volume increase of 106.2%. The MACD bullish crossover is a technical indicator that suggests a potential shift in the stock's momentum, and when combined with a volume surge, it can be a powerful signal for a potential upward trend. At the time, this signal indicated that the stock might be poised for a move upwards, and the volume surge suggested that there was significant interest from investors. The relatively neutral RSI reading of 44.1 also suggested that the stock had room to run without being overbought. This week, MAI.V gained 9.8%, opening at $4.89, reaching a high of $5.48, and a low of $4.81, before closing at $5.37. This strong performance certainly validates the original signal we detected, as the stock has shown significant upward momentum. The stock's ability to hold its gains and close near its high for the week is also a positive sign, suggesting that investors remain bullish on the stock. In other news, the company has announced plans to change its name to Mining Americas, which could potentially lead to increased visibility and recognition for the company. This rebranding effort may be a factor in the stock's recent performance, as investors react positively to the company's efforts to reposition itself. The name change could also signal a broader shift in the company's strategy or focus, which we'll be keeping an eye on in the coming weeks. As we look ahead to next week, viewers should watch for whether the stock can continue its upward momentum, and whether the rebranding effort has a lasting impact on investor sentiment. We'll also be keeping an eye on any further news or announcements from the company, as these could potentially influence the stock's performance. That wraps up our weekly review. Subscribe for daily TSX signals from NorthFlow Finance. Thanks for tuning in, subscribe for more, and remember, this is not financial advice. Consult a professional before making investment decisions.